Right.
All right, this is clean too.
Okay.
So much cleanliness.
I know. Never again. Okay, there we go.
Keep things clean.
Good evening. Welcome to the Thursday, April 12th, 2018 meeting of the Kensington Police Protection and Community Services District. I'm Board President Rochelle Sherris-Watt, and I will now take roll call. Director Deppie?
Here.
Director Welsh?
Here.
Director Hassai?
Here.
Vice President Natoli?
Here.
We will now take public comments on items on our closed session agenda. And seeing as there are none, we will retire to closed session.
Okay, it's on pause.
Good night. Good evening, excuse me. Good night. I'm ready for it. All done. It is Thursday, April 12th, 2018, and this is the Board of Directors meeting of the Kensington Police Protection and Community Services District. I'm Board President Rochelle Sherris-Watt, and I will now take roll. Director Deppie?
Here.
Director Welsh?
Here.
Director Hassai?
Here.
And Vice President Natoli?
Here.
We have returned from closed session, and there is nothing to report out this evening. We would like now to introduce Interim Chief of Police Ricky Hull, who will swear in our newest officer, Amit Nath.
At this time, I would like to initiate the oath of office to Officer Amit Nath. Please repeat after me. I, Amit Nath,
I, Amit Nath,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I bear true faith
that I bear true faith
and allegiance
and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the State of California,
and the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I am
dispose the duties upon which I am
about to enter and during
about to enter and enduring
such time as I hold the office of police officer.
such time as I hold the office of police officer.
Welcome aboard.
Thanks, sir.
Officer Ament Nath, would you please introduce your
Yes.
family?
Thank you very much. Thank you. My daughter wants to pin me. So this is my daughter, Jasleen. My son, Devin. My beautiful wife, Lilia. And our little infant guy over there, Donovan. Have a seat, Pop. Have a seat.
Hold on.
Have a seat.
Get on your shirt, okay?
I might stab him.
Don't stab.
Thank you so much for joining the KPD, and we are very excited to have you join us. We now will move to public comments for items not appearing on this evening's agenda.
How about now? Yeah, I could hear it now. Yeah, okay. John Gaccione, I can spell it, Gaccione. I have two comments. The first is in regards to the matrix meeting that we have had. I'd like to suggest that at the next meeting, members of the police department not be present. Since we're being asked to speak in a frank and open manner about our experiences with the local police department, it seems to make sense that they do not attend. At the last matrix meeting, their presence made talking about sensitive issues such as police intimidation very awkward. I found their presence to be inappropriate in such a meeting. Second item is this thing here. Let's give you the full thing. There you go. Like many other Kensington residents, I received a 4-page, full-color flyer in the mail several days before the first matrix meeting. Personally, I found the mailer to be offensive and tossed it in the trash. The mailer was full of inflammatory and false statements about the future of the Kensington Police Department. It encouraged people to attend the upcoming matrix meeting and act on inflammatory and false claims made in the mailer. If you attended the meeting, you could see the effect the mailer had on many of the speakers. Several questions came to mind about the mailer. Who or what group wrote, produced, financed the mailer? Was the person or people responsible for the mailer ashamed of their work, and is that why there are no credits? What was the intent of the mailer? To inform or to inflame? I realize certain groups in town wish to keep the Kensington Police Department independent. But with all the talk about upholding community values, I am mystified why anyone would choose to stoop so low and manufacture rubbish like the so-called Kensington Independent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for Officer Nath, and I hope we can now have also a seventh officer, which will, plus the chief, bring us up to a more robust complement of police officers. And also, it would be wonderful to have daily patrols of all of Kensington that might be going on, and I just don't see it, but I next to never see a police person on my street. So there were a couple of other things I wanted to bring up. One is several concerns have come up about the new website, which, who is in charge of website content and who is in charge of the mechanics of putting pages up and down? Is that you?
I'm basically in charge of putting pages up and down. Content, in general, I tried to copy over everything from the old site unless it was some totally irrelevant 5-year-old notification or something. But in general, any important content from the old site should be on the new site. If people ask me where is something, I'd hope to find it and put it up. So if there's something missing, again, please let me know. But as far as the mechanics of putting the pages up, irregardless of deciding what should go up, that definitely is me. Now, sometimes there might be a question about should we put a certain piece of content up, and I might have to discuss it with either general manager or maybe even legal if it's very sensitive. So it's that's a more complicated question.
Thank you.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a big help in trying to clarify some stuff. I personally found one section describing when to call 911 and when to call dispatch. Don't mean to be critical, but I would call it poorly written and confusing. And I read the Berkeley Police website, and theirs was much more clear-cut and to the point, and I'd like to see the administration look at that section and bring it more into conformity with other police websites. And the other concern was that the IA report about Vanessa Cordova's traffic stop was not put back on the new website, and that I was told by a fellow citizen that they had contacted you and you had said you would not put it up. And that is disturbing to a number of us, including me, and we're kind of thinking that everything on the old website should go on the new website. Certainly anything that's a matter of public record and that was a was a press release that the former board had put on the website should go back up on the website. For example, the IA report on the traffic stop. So I hope maybe that's even a good thing to put in the policy manual about the who's deciding the content of the website and what the procedures for that are.
This isn't agendized, so we can't really discuss it.
Oh.
It's not on Director Deppie. Some of those decisions are clearly are the board's decision or a legal team. So I won't go into any more detail, but that's not, Director Deppie is
Yeah.
shouldn't be taking on the burden of saying that those decisions are his.
Yeah, I don't believe I ever said I won't put it up. I'm hoping can I at least explain what I might have said? Are we going into
Well,
dangerous territory here?
The matter hasn't been agendized.
Okay.
We do seem to be going, I do think at some point, it's going to be appropriate, at some point soon, I hope, for the board to discuss a policy
Okay.
for the website, and that should be conducted in open session after being agendized.
Well, please hear this as a request from a number of citizens that we would like to see the IA report back up on the new website. And the last thing I wanted to bring up, if I'm not out of time, is about why it is important to settle concerns about the Doro ordinance. In that we seem to be steering in the direction of possibly contracting out, and the Doro ordinance, unless there is a vote prior to a contract, is going to initiate a lawsuit, I think. And there's a lot of good arguments about why the ordinance is invalid, besides Randy Riddle's arguments, which you already have. But it's important, I think, to invalidate it before getting serious about contracting. And the reason for that is, if you do go to court and you haven't tried to invalidate it and simply ignored your own ordinance, because this is the board's ordinance, then what is the judge going to do? It's already strike one against the cause of invalidating the ordinance, right? It looks bad that you ignored the ordinance and contracted out. All this is hypothetical, but it's a good reason to get it kind of more settled. And also, if you're petitioning the court, I would think, to invalidate or lay down the ordinance, then you really don't have an opponent. I mean, somebody else could petition the opposite, and then maybe the judge would hear both cases. But it seems to me, some kind of writ petition to invalidate or lay down the ordinance would be much cheaper than not doing it, and then have both a subsequent lawsuit and also, once it's all settled, having to redo the whole request for bids and the whole thing again. It would just be very expensive. So, thank you.
Hello all. My name is Peter Liddell, and I'm here on behalf of the Kensington Public Safety Council. A little announcement. On this Saturday, we will have a presentation here on the wildland urban interface and fires you have. Let me read our flyer, which gives you all the information. The Napa Santa Rosa fires, along with the Coffee Park disaster, have brought a new dimension to wildland urban interface fire. Wildland urban interface is just where you have woodsy sections like Tilden Park, immediately adjacent to residential sections like Kensington. It's common along the East Bay Hills and other places around California. So on Saturday, April 14th, at the Community Center here, Kensington Public Safety Council will be hosting a presentation with Fire Marshal Dave Gibson. Fire Marshal Gibson will be discussing the Napa Santa Rosa fires and wildland urban interface fires in general. He will also be reviewing our fire history and educating us on CAL FIRE's Ready, Set, Go program. As an integral part of our fire prevention and safety, he'll review Kensington El Cerrito vegetation management standards and tips on how better to prepare your home against fire. Also joining us will be Livia Popp. She'll be sharing information about the Contra Costa County Community Warning System and how residents can receive emergency alerts, when the county activates the warning system and when they don't activate the system, what tools they use and how the system is activated. And Livia will bring her laptop, and we'll have a couple of more laptops that'll be available to assist participants after the presentation in registering for emergency alerts. So this talk is open to all. It's free. Everybody is welcome. So bring your neighbors, friends, and questions. We hope to see you there. Once again, 10 a.m. on Saturday morning.
I went to your program about a year ago, and it really is outstanding. It, you do
Dave
provide a
Gibson
lot
does
of
a wonderful
information.
job.
Yeah.
Yes, so please come. Thank you.
I wonder, Chief Hull, where are we? Would we be able to get people signed up for Nixle at this event? Are we ready to do that yet?
We are not ready to do that at this point.
Okay.
I'm in contact with the Nixle representative so that we can get our platform up and on.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. I'm asking that we have an update at the next meeting about police staffing as to where we are. I feel fairly strongly about this. I am concerned that we have officers work many hours, and we give them a gun and a vehicle, and it's not the best way of going. So may we have an update on that at the next meeting? Thank you.
This is just a question, and that is, I know that you have on the agenda the manager's report and possibly a response to the letter that was sent in. And I just want to know whether I'll be able to make a comment before the general manager speaks.
No, we will have public comment after we give the report, but there will be time for public comment around that item.
But not to have a short comment before.
No, we thought we would present before the information so that people could comment and clarify. All right.
Not really, but.
Dave Spath. At the February 12th special meeting, there was a discussion about the schedule for the community center renovation, and GM Constanteros reported that in the March meeting. And since it isn't agendized tonight, I was just wondering if you are on schedule for early April for the bids to, or the seeking bids, I guess is the point. Thank you.
Yeah. Well,
I will comment on that during my report tonight.
all righty. Any other further public comment? All right, we'll move on to comments from board members and the staff. Any board comments? I have one. I would like to draw everyone's attention to the press release. Chief Hull has wanted to inform everyone that unfortunately we've had to change the dispatch number for non-emergency calls, and that new phone number, 525-7573, or 510-525-7-KPD. Unfortunately, we can make phone calls to Hawaii, but sometimes it's difficult to get enough volume from Richmond to Albany, or Kensington to Albany. So we've had to change the phone number.
There will also be new magnets, the little car magnets with the non-emergency dispatch numbers, and when they're available, we'll bring them to the meeting for people here, and they'll be available in the Public Safety Building as well.
Also, there will be a meeting of the Finance Committee on Wednesday, April 25th, 7 p.m., and we will be discussing the first draft, if all goes well, the first draft of the 2018-19 budget. Time moves apace. All right, any other board member comments? All right, Chris?
Yes, I've got some comments, and it is, the general manager will be discussing this, but I thought that I should explain the circumstances around, I guess, what some people are thinking about, the initiative ordinance documents and what happened. And so, for a while I've been interested in the history of the ordinance. I've heard different opinions about whether the language of the petition was intended to put it either on the ballot, or was it intended for the board to adopt it. I've again heard some people thinking that it might not have been what they thought they were signing, and I really didn't know the history of it. We've got on the website, and I believe all we have is the ordinance itself. We've got the legal opinion about the legality of it. The minutes of the meeting are pretty sparse. Even the recording of the adopting is sparse. So I was very curious about, okay, what's really the history of this? And what I was really interested in, what is the language of the petition? I had not seen the language of the petition, and I wanted to know that. And I expressed this, I think I mentioned it to Eileen at one point, and then Eileen mentioned that she had heard that Ricky had found the box of documentation related to the petitions, or the ordinance. And so I emailed Ricky and asked, could I come by the office and look at them? Because again, I was interested in the history, the historic relevance of that. Ricky then emailed me back the next day offering to bring them to my house. And I thought, well, if it's okay to look at them and the chief of police brings them to my house, I was working at home, I thought, well, okay, why not? It's probably simpler. So we brought them by, opened it up. The box was kind of a generic filing thing. There really wasn't anything marked saying, do not open, private, to be destroyed, or anything like that. Opened it up, I found some newspaper clippings. Paul Dorrell probably knows more of the history of why the newspaper clippings are in there. The tabulation sheet of how many petitions were signed, which was also a minor interest, how many people actually signed it. There's been varied numbers sort of bandied around. And as I discovered, the original signed petitions. Now, I don't know all the election codes, but I know enough about privacy that I figured these were very sensitive documents. So I wanted to make sure what was in the box. I saw those, kind of verified that seemed all there was. And because I was interested in the language of the petition, I did make what's called a crop scan of the language. Crop scan means you only scan that specific part of the page that you're interested in. This prevents any kind of subsequent or inadvertent copying of sensitive documentation. I do that with contracts all the time. So I made a copy of the language. I put the things back in the box, and then returned them to Ricky. And that's the reason for everything that happened. The manager is going to give a report, but it was really out of interest in how did this come about? What did the petition actually say? How did that lead to the adoption of the ordinance? Because I know that we're not talking about it now, and we may not talk about it forever, but it's probably going to come up at some point, and if it comes up while I'm on the board, I want to know as much as I can about that topic. That's just my nature. So that's the reason I did what I did. That's what happened. And I hope that at least answers some of the questions. The general manager will have a fuller report. I did not make copies of any of the signatures. I didn't disclose anything. I'm well-versed in privacy, having worked for Apple for a while. They're pretty strict about that. So I realized that was sensitive documents. That's...
Could I just ask you to clarify, how long were the documents in your possession?
I didn't time it because I wasn't worried. I was doing work at the time. That's another reason why I thought, if you can bring them by, I can finish my work, review them. So I would say maybe they were at my house for an hour, but I really don't know because I wasn't paying attention. It was early afternoon. I brought them by. I brought them back. So.
Okay. We'll save other staff comments for after, and why don't we move right into the general manager's report?
So we're moving to item 8A.
8A, yes, thank you.
I do have a prepared report here that I will read. Kensington officials and staff have received multiple communications expressing concern about the disclosure of the signed petitions supporting the initiative campaign of 2009.
That campaign resulted in the board adopting the initiative measure on October 8, 2009. The matter arose after several district residents raised questions with Director Chris Deppie about the exact wording of the initiative measure described in the petitions. Although the October 8, 2009 ordinance itself is readily available, Director Deppie requested documents containing sample petition language for comparison purposes. On March 25th of this year, Interim Chief of Police Ricky Hull provided Director Chris Deppie with a box of documents relating to the 2009 initiative petition campaign. The box contained the signed petitions, the county's tabulation of the signatures, a newspaper article about the campaign, and there were possibly other documents also included. The record's pertinent history is as follows. The petition circulators presented the petition to the district on August 27th, 2009. The district's election officials certified that a sufficient number of registered voters had signed the petition and that the petition complied with all other legal requirements. On October 8th of 2009, in response to the initiative campaign, the board adopted the initiative as provided by Section 9310 of the California Elections Code. Then Chief and General Manager Greg Harmon apparently decided that the district should retain the petitions for future use. Presumably, Chief Harmon was not aware of the law requiring the petition's destruction. At some point, district staff moved the box into the storage area. Subject to certain exceptions that are not pertinent here, the California Elections Code Section 17200 requires the destruction of initiative petitions 8 months after the final examination by the local elections official. That final examination would have occurred sometime between August 27, 2009 and October 8, 2009. This section, 17200, required the district to destroy the petitions on or before June 8, 2010. Unfortunately, that did not happen, nor were the boxes marked in any way to indicate that it contained private records, which signed petitions are under both the Elections Code and the Government Code. The Elections Code prohibits using the list of signatures in initiative petitions for any purpose other than qualifying the measures for the ballot. Neither Director Deppie nor Chief Hull used the list of signatures for any purpose. Chief Hull merely transported the box of documents, and Director Deppie did not review the petitions other than to confirm the text of the proposed initiative. Obviously, this incident reveals a problem in the district's internal processes that we must act to repair. The new policy and procedures manual will include a more modern records retention schedule, which should reduce the likelihood of any further unauthorized disclosures. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll take public comment.
Can I just clarify one thing? I didn't have residents directly ask me. I had read some comments on various media sites. I've got emails suggesting different things, so just to make that clear.
I'm referring here, excuse me, to a letter that was submitted by Dane Gillette. It says here, it's come to the attention of several of us in the community, and then goes on to say that Chief of Police Ricky Hull recently removed from the custody of the police department the box, and so forth. So he's alleging that Ricky Hull did this, and now, in fact, maybe that is confirmed. I would like to know who made this information available to the several people who appear to have had this, been notified of this. I would like to know. Is there anybody who can answer that?
I do not know. I did not. I don't believe any board member did.
I certainly didn't.
So
Seems rather odd that I didn't get it. I don't know who the people were who did get it. Is this another bit of the procedure of trying to take down the interim chief of police? There have been numerous letters going around stating that he is not competent. I am just wondering whether this is simply one more piece of this.
Leonard Schwartzberg, commenting on the same issue. That question that Celia just asked has occurred to me as well. And it appears that the former boards were remiss in carrying out the law. And then the old guard, and you guys are the old guard, has tried to use this to discredit this board, the interim chief of police, and this raises some real questions about where did this information come from? Who is reporting this kind of stuff that seems really benign, and trying to make it an issue with which to bring down the present board. This occurs in the context of this so-called publication that's called itself The Independent. There are all kinds of things that are going on that seem like an orchestrated campaign to discredit this board. What's going on here? The photographs in The Independent, which I doubt is really an independent, suggest that there's some kind of a conspiracy going on between people on the board and the consultants. Seems to me there's a conspiracy to try to create the impression of a conspiracy. When is this community going to get its act together? This is all, you know, I was a real opponent of outsourcing the police department. But I have come to believe that that may be the only way to clean up the mess that was created by the former board and its supporters. And this letter by Mr. Gillette, when I read this letter and I see the artifice that's used in it, it makes me shudder to think that he is key in making life and death decisions in California. It says here that the government code that he's relying on, that section provides that district initiative petitions shall not be deemed to be public records and shall not be open to inspection, except under limited circumstances, none of which appear to be applicable in this matter. Well, wait a second. That's to the general public. Ricky is not the general public. Chris is not the general public. This is a distortion, and the distortion is not limited to this. You guys have a lot of past mess to clean up.
Thank you.
Hi, Linda Lipscomb. Well, a lot to do about this. I kind of agree with what Leonard said about the whole conspiracy thing, about it being a prevailing, overarching framework for this discussion about this. I first learned about the removal of these petitions. By the way, I not only signed the petition, but I also gathered signatures for that. I first learned about that by seeing the letter of Dane Gillette. So I wasn't one of those who knew in advance. I think that the reason that this comes about is because there's a tremendous amount of anxiety in many sectors of our community about whether or not there is going to be, yes, Leonard, that's the first time I ever agreed with you about this. I think that there is a tremendous amount of concern in this community about whether or not there is going to be permitted a vote on the issue of contracting out. This ordinance provides that there will be if the district decides to get rid of its police protection function, or if it decides to contract out, that there's going to be a vote of the people. And that's the framework in which this arises. And I think people become very upset when they hear that, geez, somebody wants to compare the text of the petition with the text of the ordinance itself, going beneath a duly adopted ordinance that had been certified by the Department of Elections to be a proper ordinance. People tend to think in this kind of environment where it is at least strongly perceived that this board may attempt to circumvent a vote of the people because of a legal opinion that it has. People tend to think that that was for what I would consider unlawful purposes. I would rather see this board put aside all of that and commit to having the people vote on this important issue. I've done a little background research, and indeed, I went back a little bit and saw from 1993 a measure, an ordinance that was put up by Tom Torlakson and Tom Powers for the purpose of an advisory vote. In that case, it was an advisory vote on whether to consolidate the Kensington Fire Department with the county fire department. They didn't have a problem with putting that up to the people. I think the whole little skirmish about the legality of this ordinance is contrary to everything this board should stand for. I think you should, whether you go by the letter of this ordinance or not, whether you want to entertain a legal challenge to it or not, you should, as board members, commit to having a vote of the people on whether you contract out or not. And I'd like to see you undertake that and tell us whether that's what you're going to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I just respond a bit?
Yes.
So, just Linda, and everyone, my intention was not to try to invalidate the ordinance. I fully accept that it was passed legally by the board, that the language was certified by the election clerk. That was not my intention. It's not my belief. I really wanted to understand what the original language of the petition was, just because I'd heard some questions. I have no doubt that it was passed legally by the board and certified by the election, so that was not my intention. But I can understand why someone might think that. I understand that. But I just wanted to assure you that was not, and I understand enough about the election and the ordinance procedure that I wasn't trying to find a loophole for why it was.
And I take you at your word. I take you at your word on that.
But I can understand why.
What I'm saying is that in this environment where we hear back and forth that we may lose our police department, we may not lose our police department, it tends to, in the absence of action on the part of the board in affirming, and we're going through this matrix study, yet another study. It's not like we haven't been here before on studying how this should be handled with Brown-Taylor and prior administrations. I think you could put this to rest by saying, of course, we will seek a vote of the people. Of course, that's the right thing to do. And as I say, I went back and I looked, is there any precedent for this? And I found this 1993 advisory vote. It was in a slightly different context of either getting rid of our fire department or consolidating it with the county fire department. It's the right thing to do. And if it goes on like this, on focusing on whether you can prove an illegality, pardon me, on whether you can prove an illegality or not in respect of this ordinance, that undermines the spirit of the democracy of this jurisdiction. So I'd like to see you say, yeah, we're having a vote. I think that might put it to rest. Thank you.
I agree with the previous speaker. It would be really wonderful to hear the board say that they intend to call for an advisory vote should we go in the direction of contracting out. I wanted to thank you all for the candid, open way that you handled this momentary lapse of legality and are correcting the problem with a new administrative procedure. And I agree with several of the previous speakers that it is a, relatively minor matter, and you've handled it well, and hopefully we can now put it all behind us except for the administrative procedures. I just had one other thing to add, which is what I find strange, which is the documents that you were interested in have been in public circulation for at least 4 years. I got them from David Bergen, and it was like circulated among people. This is the tabulation, and it's and the same document has the actual petitions, and it has 2 signatures of like the first 2 people signing maybe. So it has several examples of the petitions. The petitions were all the same, but for some reason it had several. It had the tabulations. And it was also up on the website that David Bergen did, which is called, I'm not sure, Kensington something. And several weeks ago on Nextdoor, in a discussion about the Doro ordinance, we were discussing the tabulation, and I was going to, because I have a copy, but David gave a link on Nextdoor to the tabulation, and I didn't check the link. I mean, but I had gotten both the tabulation and the petitions, so they were available. So it's really too bad that, and as far as I know, those same documents are still available from the county, should one ask. So there is a portion of what what's in the box that is also public record.
Thank you.
Vita Doro. At the last meeting, I registered my concerns about the hacking of our website. Having been a victim of having my credit violated, I'm a little sensitive to it. So at this meeting, we hear that 1,000 signatures lost chain of custody and were taken out. They shouldn't have been there to begin with. And I truly believe, Mr. Deputy, that nothing happened. But hearing Katya now say that Mr. Bergen was also privy to some of this information, I'd like to know whether you, as board are going to give us a theft protection to the 1,000 signatures that were taken out of your custody. I mean, any credit bureau, when they violate my credit card or my information, they extend me a year warranty on my credit, so.
Well, those signatures were never put anywhere to any use, so they were in the office, but we have no idea, no board member has any idea about Mr. Bergen's use, or that would have been something that is outside our purview if Katya has apparently information from when the initiative was passed. It would have to be, you'd have to consult him directly. And I think what the board is going to do tonight is I'm going to make a motion that we destroy the documents as should have been done 9 years ago and directed by our general manager at that time. But your signature has not gone anywhere or been used by anyone, so we will not be.
I have your word for that, Rochelle?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So that's basically.
I do want to say one thing. It does raise the question, how did Mr. Bergen lay his hands on those petitions with signatures? Because if they were all in the police department.
He may have had them from when the initiative was passed around.
No. The initiatives, once we collected the signatures, and the reason I'm concerned is that my signature probably appears 15 or 20 times. Not only I signed a petition, but I
Are you from
circulated
Chicago?
the petition.
Are you from Chicago?
Vote early and often.
I circulated the petition, and as a circulator, you had to sign that you had, as a lawyer, you should know that.
So I just want to say, my only point is I think it raises an issue, and we need to talk to Mr. Bergen about how he acquired those materials. Doesn't matter if he has one petition with a signature on it, he should not.
No, it isn't. If I may finish.
All I'm saying is
can
I
have the
think we need
podium.
to talk to him and find out what his explanation is. Just
We
got an
turned
explanation from
in-
Chris that it makes sense. We need to do the same with Mr. Bergen. That's all I'm saying.
We turned in the petitions to the board. The board sent them to the county to have them certified. So that was the chain of custody. And it totally surprises me that they are still, they were not destroyed and they came back. I don't know how and who was the county representative who certified them. But obviously, they were not out of the custody of us giving it to the board, the county, and how they ended up. So if Mr. Bergen got hold of it, that really concerns me. And as I said, I like to get some kind of warranty from this board that my signature is not going to show up in Texas, on some SUV that's going to Mexico. My signature, you had custody of the signatures, you made them public. I like to get some kind of guarantee that you will be looking after if there's any fraud. Thank you.
Good evening, Anthony Knight. We're in the part of the agenda this evening entitled the Manager's Report, and under that is item A, which we've been talking about, namely this initiative. There are two other important areas under the manager's purview. One is the parks, and the other is the solid waste. And I'm bothered by a manager's report that just has an A section and not a B and a C section. I think that the ongoing issues regarding those other two areas should be at least mentioned by him. I have something that I want to raise about the parks, and looking at this agenda, I feel like I'm interrupting this discussion of the initiative with no opportunity to then present my concern about the parks. So I'm asking, shall I am I free to go on with this, or?
Something wasn't agendized, you could have made a public comment in the public comment section, and I don't believe the general manager is finished with his report yet.
In the public comment section, I'm used to this board stonewalling me and not discussing the matter, telling me that it wasn't agendized and so I can't talk about it. So I wait and I look in the agenda to see when that item might be discussed, and I might have a conversation.
Okay, well, let me make a suggestion. You can
Yes.
always ask us to agendize something for the next meeting.
I can ask, but
Why don't you
not-
give it a
I'm
try?
not really-
Why don't you give it a try?
Okay, I would like to, can I at least explain what I want to discuss at the next meeting? No. Okay.
Send us a letter requesting that we agendize.
Who is us?
The board.
The board or the general manager?
Take your pick, the board or the general manager. Make the request, and we'll see if we
Mr.
can
Knight?
put it on the agenda.
The general manager has not finished his report this evening. I realize it does seem to be centered around, but there are a few other items, and we are discussing solid waste.
I don't want to talk about solid waste. I understand it's here. I want to talk about the parks.
Okay.
Why don't you wait for the board's, for the general manager's report to be finished, which includes some discussion, and then we can continue from there.
Okay, I'm not expecting the general manager to address Parks and Recreation. It's not on this agenda. I would like to see an A, B, C in the future of your 3 areas of responsibility that gives the public the opportunity to engage on those topics. Is that so unfair?
Thank you very much. We would prefer to just leave one comment per speaker because we're not going to engage in, if you have something on a new area, but if you're responding, we're not doing a call and response. Thank you very much. I appreciate. All right. Would you like to finish your report? And this actually should not be under the category of manager's report. This actually is under the category, I think, of staff comments because it concerns the community center.
I just want to say one thing before you do that. I totally accept Chris's explanation, and I appreciate your coming out and explaining that.
And pardon me, may I make a motion before that I move that we direct staff to destroy the petitions from the 2009 ordinance?
I second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
If I don't have to recuse myself, I say aye.
None opposed. The motion passes 5-0, and that will hopefully be done before the next meeting. All right, General Manager?
I'm sorry, can I just interrupt? Is this putting the council or the community in jeopardy in any way?
Please come to the microphone and
Your name?
I apologize. My name is Mark Bell. I'm thinking through this. I understand some mistake has been made, but does it put us in any jeopardy as a community to go and destroy these documents right now when there is some level of controversy over what exactly happened? I don't know if there's a regulation, I don't know if there's a law broken, but I'm just thinking through maybe before you destroy something that could be a bigger issue, maybe you protect it and hold on to it until the issue.
No, these documents were supposed to be destroyed 8 months after the election. It's 9 years. We would be remiss in not destroying them now. I mean, unless there were some kind of fingerprints or something we would need to retain, we need to destroy them.
That's what I want you to be really confident of.
I'm
because
absolutely confident.
when it comes back and bites
Yes,
you
there's no
somewhere-
reason that we should have these documents.
responsible.
No
You
one
don't
should
want
have
us to keep
possession.
breaking the law, right? We want to correct the problem.
All right.
Bad position on both sides. So.
All right, the General Manager?
Linda Lipscomb. I think what Mark was trying to... Pardon?
No, I'm sorry, yeah,
I think what Mark was trying to get at, this is important. I think what he was trying to get at is if there was an impropriety or someone could allege an impropriety, then, or an action contrary to law, then it might be seen as spoliation of evidence. That's what I think he's getting
We
at.
understood.
yes. All right. So now we will move to the conclusion of staff comments.
I do have some comments under item 7. Is that appropriate? So moving backwards to item 7, I just wanted to give a quick update on the community center project, and that Glass and Associates are continuing to prepare the documents and plans based on the design that has been approved by the board. And in the next couple of weeks, they're planning to contact the county and go through the procedures, and hopefully there won't be any unforeseen roadblocks in the process. If everything goes as the current plan, with the current time frame, the bidding process will probably cover some of the months of May and June, and hopefully a decision will be made to award the bid sometime in late June or early July. Now, at the same time, there are a number of organizations that have committed funds to the project, and we're hoping to fold this into the budget process for the next fiscal year. The information I have is that we've set aside $350,000 from the previous year and a little over $300,000 additional for the current fiscal year, for the upcoming fiscal year. I'm sorry, I said that correctly, for the current fiscal year, yes. And that the KCC and KIC have indicated a contribution of nearly $500,000. I think the exact number is $470,000. And of course, there's $158,000 also from the county grant available. And we are working with the CSDA Finance Corporation and looking at a possible loan. The exact amount of the loan has not been determined, but the financing is very favorable. The last figure I looked at, it was 3.5%. There's also a campaign that is upcoming from Kensington 360, and they're planning an event on Sunday, June 24th, here in the community center, and the purpose of the event is to celebrate the paying off of the bond that funded the purchase of the green space, and to encourage the community to look forward and invest the same funds in bricks and mortar for the new community center. Now, some of the board members may have some additional information they'd like to add to that, but I thought I'd give a brief overview of the project.
I think more details about the budgeting for this renovation will occur and be available at the April 25th Finance Committee meeting, and of course, when we present our final budget, hopefully by the end of May. So that will provide more clarification. And I know that Sylvia's been working with Glass and Associates, and we were getting further detail about any additional requirements we would need before we went to bid. So
I haven't gotten a chance to tell the board about that June 24th event, so for everyone in the community and the board, please mark your calendars. June 24th, I believe we are thinking about from 2 to 5, a celebration of the park, and looking forward as well.
all right, are there further staff comments?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, did you wish to make any comment on the staff comments, Mr. Knight? Okay. All righty. Mr. Doro?
I'm a little bit out of order here, but I hope you'll indulge me for a moment. I think this is a constructive thought to follow up on the discussion about the petitions. It might behoove the board, before they are destroyed, to have an independent party verify that all of the petitions were returned. There should be a tally sheet in the box, and it should be possible to say there were 110 petition parts with a certain number of signatures. And those should be counted, and then everybody will be satisfied that everything's on the up and up, which I'm confident that it is. But for the mental repose of the board and others in the community. I think that that might be something you'd want to consider doing and possibly amending your motion so as to provide for that to happen before they are destroyed.
Well, I think we take that under legal advisement, and I have no wish to amend my motion at this time.
I believe the motion has already passed, has it
Yes.
not? Yes, and there really isn't an opportunity to do, but it's certainly not legally necessary.
All right, well, we'll take that under legal advisement. We would not have an independent review because that would be opening the petitions up to someone outside in the community. That would be done, any legal review would be done by our attorneys. All right, we're going to move on to item 9, the consent calendar. We have, minutes from the March 8th, 2018 meeting. Would anyone like to comment on the consent calendar? Seeing as there's none, I will make a motion that we adopt the consent calendar. All in favor?
Second.
Oh, excuse me, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, the motion passes 5-0. We now move on to items 10A. Vice President Natoli will update us on the survey for waste composting.
Okay, so in your next invoice from Bayview, which should be going out sometime this month, you'll receive this card, and it has a unique number on it. And we ask that you either put it in this box, which will be under Lynn's direction and supervision and security, and or you could put it back in your envelope to Bayview if you pay by check, or you can do the survey online, but to do the survey online, you have to use this unique number. And this is about whether to have food composting included in green waste, and because it is required that food waste be picked up weekly, it has a slight advantage in that our green waste will be picked up weekly. There are draft regulations which will, if they were to take effect, require food composting in order to reduce landfill. If we go now, there's going to be a 7% increase. If we wait until later, it's possible that it would be greater than 7% increase. So that's what's new on food composting.
We want to tell everyone, your name is not going to be connected with the survey. The idea of the unique number is that we make sure that...
One per household.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Questions or comments about the waste survey? It'll be appearing in the May garbage bill. All right. Item 10B, update on the matrix study. General Manager Constantoros.
Yes, there is as the public is aware, there was a public meeting held on Saturday, March 17th, and an additional public meeting is scheduled for Saturday, April 28th at 10 a.m. And this meeting, the first meeting was pretty much of a express your opinion on anything you wanted related to the police department, and some things unrelated to the police department too. This one will hopefully be a little more structured, and the goals would be to, well, first of all, to provide a summary of the whole project and where it currently stands. And then Matrix will present what they've learned from the community. The community input, the original intent was to have the public meetings, but as we know, some people can't attend or don't want to attend or choose not to express their viewpoint in a public setting. So there was a questionnaire format that was developed to allow citizens the opportunity to express their views in writing through a questionnaire. The questionnaire was not a survey, it simply was a vehicle of public input. My understanding is that Matrix has received to date 300 responses, and there is a postcard that's going to go out to the community asking people to go ahead and complete the questionnaire if they have not done that, and also informing them about this upcoming April 28th meeting. Matrix will also discuss the characteristics of effective police service. What are the characteristics and how are they determined? And then finally, they will provide a summary on some of the results of the Phase 1, which is where the Kensington Police Department current stands, what are the ways that it can improve, what are the positives, what information that Matrix has garnered at this stage in their review. So that part will be very interesting. I think they'll cover patrol staffing and community input, police practices, best practices, and how they compare to current practice in Kensington. And that's my update on the Matrix report. I don't know if Director Hosai has any additional. She's the liaison to Matrix from the board.
No, I have nothing.
I do want to assure people that we are making a concentrated effort. The information will be updated on our website. There will be advertising on the signboard, and this postcard is going out to every household to inform folks that we would love for them to complete the survey and also to attend the meeting, as well as outreach efforts on social media and personal connection. So we're making every effort to hopefully get as many folks there as we can. So please talk to your friends and neighbors and invite them to take the survey just once, and to, it is just an informational gathering. You don't want to maybe impart that it's 10 for, 10 against on the survey, that what we're trying to do is really gather some information and general opinion. All right, further comment? Yes.
You know a little bit about surveys, right?
You may want to remind Matrix that it says the survey is closing April 10th on their website. I'm sure they'll pick it up, but just to make sure, particularly since you're sending out this post.
Thank you very much. Yes.
I wish they had used the same kind of survey that the waste management is doing. Would have been a lot more reliable.
Well, it's because I work in a law firm, and I know what a bait stamp is, so that's.
Well, I appreciate that.
My arm can attest. I stamped 2,400 of these.
Well, well, next time we'll volunteer to come and help you. I have a question about the when the board approved the plans for the community center. There are people in the community who want to know exactly what the plans are, as some of us who are trying to do fundraising. So if you could direct me to.
They're on the website.
Meeting.
I don't know exactly which meeting. They've been discussed at least twice, but they are, the most recent ones are on the website.
Okay, because I was not able to locate them.
Under Parks and Rec, under the community center remodel, there's a special place for documents related to the remodel.
Okay.
And there's the last presentation from Glass Associates there.
Okay, I'll check that again. Thank you. Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not certain that I'm going to be allowed to say this. Okay. I think the concept of an independent police force is a misnomer. An independent police force is a police state. And we do not have an independent police force. Some people think we used to. The police force is under the authority of this board. It's not independent. I think that the language that should be used should be changed to under local authority, and even if it's farmed out, even if it's contracted out, it's still under the authority of this board. So there are some false issues that are being floated. Secondly, it seems to me that those who were in control of this board and this police force, and to that extent of this community before, coming here and complaining to you about the problems existing which they created is real chutzpah. And let me tell you what chutzpah is for those of you who may not know. There's a classical example for chutzpah. The man who murdered his parents goes up before the judge and asks for mercy on the grounds that he's an orphan.
All right, we're going to move on to our item of new business. I'd like to present Stephen Chang, who will present to us the audit that appears, I'm sorry, we were separate documents this time, so I can't give you an agenda page off the top of my head. So, Mr. Chang?
Okay, I'm Stephen Chang, Lamarin and Chang CPA. Delighted to be here to present the Kensington Police Audit Report for fiscal year ended 2017. First, I would like to thank you, the board, the management, Tony and Lynn, and the staff doing a fabulous job keeping the good records and book for my team to work. And as a result, I have a clean audit opinion for fiscal year 2017 on both the general audit report and also a report on internal control on financial and compliance audit under the government auditing standard. With that, I would like to point out, go through some of the financial highlight. This year, we have added a couple schedule with the audit report. If we could turn to page number 35, we have the financial report, both the balance sheet and the profit and loss with the two-year comparison. And we could go through that and look at some of the financial highlight there. We could start out to look at page number 37. Kensington Police for fiscal year ended 2017 with a total annual revenue ended with approximately $3,487,000 versus fiscal year 2016 with $3.1 million. And we're looking at approximately $353,000 increase. That's equivalent to about 10%. Biggest changes area, property tax, and some of the one-time grants, the COPS program, and also the asset that was sold from the Caesar forfeit. That's, $143,000 versus $18,000. So those are the non-occurrence, but that's contributed about $120,000 increase from the last fiscal year. And we flip back to page number 36. We're looking at the total expenses for the fiscal year ended. We're looking at $2.9 million versus $2.7. And we're looking at about 7% increase from fiscal year 2016. And the biggest changes area is the PERS from the district contribution. And that particular expenses alone, we're looking at fiscal year 2017 of $348,000 versus last fiscal year $163,000. I guess this is not really a big surprise to anybody. That's PERS, they still working on their numbers, and you're going to see some changes in the next couple of years. So with that, revenue increased about 10% with total expenses about 7%. We go back to page number 37 and we look at the net bottom line. Net income for fiscal year 2017 comes into approximately $575,000 versus $438,000 from fiscal year 2016. And we're looking at, approximately 27, 28% from the year before. So that's a good net increase of, about $137,000. Any question there so far? Okay, if not, we could turn to page number 35. Number 35 is your balance sheet, and again, this is, I'm doing a 2-year presentation and looking at fiscal year 2017 and 2016. Total asset, we're looking at 6.3 million versus 5.9 from the year before, and we're looking at about $400,000 increase from the previous year. The biggest changes area is cash. Cash on hand is 2.1 million, ended June 30th, and in 2016 is about 1.8. We're looking at about $269,000 increase in cash. Other biggest change area we have, rest of the asset is pretty consistent. The biggest change on the balance sheet, on the liability side, we're looking at long-term net pension liability. Fiscal year 2017, the pension liability is about 3.5, and versus 2016, we're looking at about 2.8. Right there is about $600,000 increase in liability. For the pension, this is how the CalPERS they're doing a different method of measuring their liability, so that result in quite a bit of increase to be reported on 2017. So everybody know that CalPERS is also looking at in the future in fiscal year 2018, you might go to see the number go to increase even more. One of the reasons why is they are moving up their amortization of pension liability. Instead of 30 years, they are pushing up to 20 years. So you probably go to see another pretty big increase in fiscal year 2018.
What would be the ballpark of that increase, do you think?
Quite honestly with you, I don't have that information, but I'm sure if you could take a look at the CalPERS website or, under their total risk pool, for the whole California, you probably will see the amortization number will change quite a bit, because I understand that they just passed that law, I would say about maybe 4 to 6 weeks ago that they did that, so.
May I ask a question? So if they're going to be changing this amortization from 30 years to 20 years, will that change also bleed over into the manner in which they are calculating their hypothetical termination liabilities?
That probably would, because that is one of the moving part, but what it is when they move up the amortization to the shorter period, that means your annual contribution would be a lot higher. So that's probably will be the key impact.
Okay, so the current hypothetical termination liability for us is somewhere between $20 and $25 million based on where we were about a year ago. So what should we anticipate moving forward?
I would say it should be, the anticipated liability should be approximately the same. However, it's just the cash flow area that is the key changes. It's like I said, it's the current year recognition, how much expenses that you need to recognize and how much you need to anticipate to pay out.
I expect Tony will make this part of the budget for the next year.
Right.
That change.
Do we have new documentation on that? Because our termination liability, I've only ever seen it around 16 million, where we should have actual around 9, and then to leave the program would be somewhere closer to 16.
I would say.
But it may have been updated.
Yeah, I would say you probably want to double check with the actuarial to look at that. They probably have good number, because they are the one that will be.
Sure, no,
We don't need to,
reassess
it's fine, we
that.
can,
Yeah.
And the last piece that I would like to bring out is for the future, for fiscal year 2018, there's several new GASB that came out that will impact the financial reporting for fiscal year 2018. One of the big area that everybody probably noticed is the OPEB, is the GASB 75. What that GASB 75 do is medical insurance for retired officer. Before, the OPEB is just like pension. The district has been expensing the payment, and all we have is just a footnote disclosure. But with GASB 75 come on next year in 2015, it will go to be like pension. Another $3 million approximately will be recognized on your balance sheet as a liability. So currently, we're looking at GASB 45, long-term pension is about 3.5 on the book right now. With GASB 75 for fiscal year 2018, you're probably looking at anywhere from about 6 to maybe $6.5 million total liability on the book, including pension. That's something that you guys will anticipate be looking at. And that's probably going to be a huge impact, on your balance sheet. Okay. Any
questions? I have a couple, but a lot of comments. First, I want to thank the Finance Committee and Mr. Chang, first for this very excellent and complete audit. And thank you to the Finance Committee that recommended the side-by-side two-year comparison, which Mr. Chang graciously complied with. That's unusual in government audits. I want to point out to folks that we did receive a bump from our workers' comp last year, where we were given $94,000, and our expense of payout was $57,000. But workers' comp this year our fee is now $91,000. So while we had a boost last year, we will end up paying that back to them. I also want to point out on page 26, I'll get there, that the incredible hit that changes in assumptions, that if the discount rate is changed by CalPERS, if it goes down just 1% of decrease, we're responsible for another $1.8 million. Unfortunately, a 1% increase in the expected return isn't quite as fruitful for us. So there's a lot of concern and focus that we'll be paying in the coming years on what our net pension liability will be. And then I also want to ask about the 4% medical trend rate, and if you are changing that, if you're seeing as time going on and anticipating that that is going to go up very dramatically. Let me say, it of course will go up. There's no chance. But
actually, when it comes to the medical trend rate, I do see that for sure will go up, but I probably will not be in a position really to say a whole lot in that area because, I don't really have a good study, a rate table to really be able to tell you. My duty is basically, reviewing the information and make sure that they are coming in to report it on your report.
Will the mortality tables are they going to move to 2016? Or are they, because you used 2014?
That's correct. That's correct. The reason why I used the 2014 table is because this is the latest table that is published, that way I could use. And hopefully in 2018 report, I will have the latest from the your consultant.
Okay. Any other questions?
And I'll be able to report on that
Okay.
as soon as I get that.
Wonderful, thank you. Oh. Comment?
Good evening, Jim Watt. At the finance meeting, we talked about various things that you brought up here, but at that meeting, you did not indicate to us what you anticipated our obligations would be as a result of GASB 75, as a result of, what is the 75 that has the GASB condition to it, right?
75 is the new OPEB.
OPEB, that's the one I wanted, yes. Are you the one that will come up with that final number? You said it's going to be about $3 million.
No, I'm not the one that will come up with that number. The new GASB 75 number will came from your consultant. The district will hire an independent actuarial. Then they are the one that will come up with the report, and they will come up with all the statistical information. And my duty is to review those information and make sure they are reported on your financial statement as profit and loss, and also your balance sheet.
We'll be in discussion, I think, with Nicolay to be doing that project.
Well, given that it might go to $3 million, would it be your recommendation that we should actually be setting aside some additional monies to meet that obligation? We currently we currently pay our retirees directly for their cost, and we set aside a small amount to meet future obligations. But given that we're now talking about a rather significant number, should we be increasing that?
Definitely.
Definitely?
Well, to setting aside more funding, resources.
Right.
To be able to pay off your debt.
Right.
This is like very basic. It's just like, anybody running any business. When you have debt on your balance sheet, you want to look at your resources.
Right.
How you allocate your resources to pay down on your debt.
Well, I'm asking that because last year we only set aside less than $100,000. So it sounds to me like we should probably start stepping that number up.
Absolutely. I think
Okay.
your finance budget committee will probably need to do that.
That's what I want to do. We were anticipating over $200,000 for this year, but so far we haven't put any out there. So I just wanted to hear you say that, that's all.
Yes.
Your premise is confirmed. All right, any further comments? All right, well, if there's no further comments, thank you again, Mr. Cheng. And anyone who wants some light reading can read pages 17, 18, and 19 on future GASB requirements. So I make the motion that we, accept the, let me get the exact wording, the financial statement and independent auditor's report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2017, prepared by La Marina and Chang.
I will second. No.
All right.
I was first.
I think the proper language would be for the motion to approve the.
We approve the audit, yes. So Len was the first second. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, the motion passes 5-0. I now move that we adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you for coming. We will see you again, if not at our Finance Committee meeting, at our next regular meeting, Thursday, April 26th.